So again, good morning guys. Today we are still talking about the cardiovascular, the heart. Previously we talked about the pericardium, but today we'll be moving over to the other layers of the heart, which is the myocardium and the endocardium. And when you hear the myocardium, just think of the muscle of the heart. Think of the myocardium as the muscle of the heart, because when you know that it's the muscle of the heart, it makes it easier for you to understand what it does, and every other thing will be explained in the video. So it's just the muscle of the heart. It's the part of the heart, because the heart has different layers. The pericardium, which is the outer part that protects the heart, then this myocardium that helps the heart to pump blood, to relax and contract, then the endocardium. So this is the thickest layer of the heart, and it helps the heart to contract and relax in order to pump blood. And without it, the heart won't function, because it's what helps the heart to do what it does. So now, what is it made up of? This myocardium is made up of specialized muscle cell, which is the myocytes. Yeah, it's made up of these myocytes, and just know that this myocyte is the cell of this myocardium. And just like the skeletal muscle, these cells are striated. They look exactly like the skeletal muscle. They are striated, they have stripes. That's what I mean. When you hear striated, just know that we are talking about stripe, like zebra stripe and all that. So they have stripes, and now they behave differently. They don't behave like skeletal muscle, rather they behave like smooth muscle. They contract involuntarily. They walk involuntary. They do their work involuntary. It means involuntary. I mean that you can't control it. Can you control how your heart works? No. Your heart does its thing at its own pace. So it except other muscles like the skeletal muscle, which you can control, but this cardiac muscle you cannot control it, because it behaves like the smooth muscle. So it's involuntary. And then this cell is, each cells of this myocardium is made up, has nucleus. It has nucleus, and each of them also has a mitochondria. It has mitochondria, and that is why the heart doesn't get tired, because this mitochondria. So each cell, like I said, each cell has one nucleus and then a mitochondria. That's why it doesn't run out of energy. It works continuously. It doesn't get tired. And in this cell, like microscopically, they have a gap, and this gap is called intercalated discs. And if microscopically, when you see it, it is that darker. It's like a kind of stuff that joins the cells together. Imagine friends, when maybe 3 or 4 friends when they hold their hands together. So that is how this intercalated disc is. It joins the cells together. And what's the importance of this? It makes it easier for electrical signals to pass through the cells, like how will I explain it? Like, as they're joined together, it makes it easier for the electrical signal to quickly pass through these parts throughout the cells quickly. And that's why when the heart contracts, when the heart does its work, everything contracts together. They do it together because they are joined. The cells are joined together, and that is why the electrical signal passes through them quickly to enable all of them to work together, to contract together. Now, another thing I would like to leave you guys with is that the left ventricle myocardium is more thicker. Why? Is because it pumps to systemic circulation, and the reason is it needs enough energy, in order to pump this blood out. So the one in the left is more thicker because it pumps into the systemic circulation, while the left ventricle myocardium is less thicker because it pumps into the pulmonary circuit. So it is very important to know this myocardium because there are also diseases that can arise in this area of the heart, like the myocardial infarction, which is when this heart muscle dies, and then myocarditis, which is inflammation of this myocardium, and then myocardial heart failure, which is when this muscle is too weak to pump blood. They are too weak. They don't have that enough strength to pump blood out. And now we'll be going over to the endocardium. So this endothelium is a thin membrane that that lines the chamber and the valves of this heart. This endothelium, they are thick and smooth, and they are made up of endothelium, which is flat cells. They are made up of endothelium, which is flat cells. They are thin and smooth, and they allow blood to easily flow to prevent clotting. For example, imagine a non-stick pot. When you're cooking with a non-stick pot, the food won't stick on the pot. So that is same thing this endocardium does. It provides smooth lining for blood to easily flow, and it's also continuous with the blood vessels. That's why blood can easily flow from the ventricles to the arteries, and it also forms the valve. This endocardium, they fold inward, forming the valve, and what this valve does is enables one-way flow of blood through the heart. It doesn't allow backflow of blood from where it's coming from, so it allows the blood to flow smoothly. So hope you understand what we've taught today. We mentioned the myocardium, that is the muscle of the heart, that it is made up of a specialized cell, which is the myocyte, and they are striated just like skeletal muscle, and then they behave like smooth muscle because they work involuntary. I also mentioned that this myocardium is the layer of the heart that enables the heart to contract and relax. And I also mentioned that in this cell that there is a gap called the intercalated disc, and it's just like I made an illustration with, imagine 4 or 3 friends holding their hands together, you see, and it will make it easier for electrical signals to pass through these cells. That's why when the heart contracts, it doesn't contract one after the other. They all contract together, so it enables electrical signals to easily pass through the cells. And then I also mentioned that the myocardium in the left ventricle is much thicker because it is circulating into the systemic circulation, going into the systemic circulation, while the one in the right is less thicker because it's just going into this pulmonary circuit. And then we also talked about the endocardium, which is a thin smooth layer, the thin smooth membrane that lines the valve and the chambers. And what does it do? It enables blood to flow smoothly and prevents any friction or clotting, and it also folds inwards, forming the valve. And what does this valve does? The valve prevents backflow and enables one-way flow of blood through the heart.